Yeah, it's called OwnCloud scalability because I looked at some large implementations of OwnCloud, and it's called a Nextcloud design because we decided to go with Nextcloud. I think, yeah, a little bit about me. I'm Dennis from 360 ICT. It's a Dutch company. There's also an English one, so that's why I put the .nl in it. And basically, we got this question from a customer of us who wanted to have a sync application for about 20,000 users. We started actually a long time ago with SharePoint. That was like six or 7 years ago. That project horribly failed. Couldn't get it to work. I don't think it's that weird because if you see that Office 365 also has a lot of problems still with syncing, it's not that weird. But last year, beginning of 2016, we came across something that was called OwnCloud. So we did some proof of concepts on that, and we liked it, so we decided to do an implementation for that. So that's basically what we set out to do, design a 20,000 user Nextcloud implementation. First, I looked at the documentation. It said 100,000 users, 1 petabyte, so that would be good enough for us. There were some more guidelines here, but already I had a lot of questions, so I emailed Nextcloud with those questions. They referred me actually to Kuba. He's there. He actually sent me to CS3, which I spent like 2 days watching all the presentations over there. I got some really nice info on there of some real-world deployments and the problems they face. And I decided to put all the things I saw in a sheet for my own comparison, for my own goals to see what kind of installations they had. But after I did that, I still had a lot of questions, so I asked Jos from Nextcloud, can I ask you these questions? And he said, well, just go to the Nextcloud conference and then we'll set up a workshop and then you can present your questions and then we can talk about these questions. That got bumped up to a full presentation. I'm not sure if it's interesting for you here because you're all really knowledgeable and we're like doing this for the first time. So it could be, but if there's someone else who wanted to do this, you could consider it as an how-to manual. Basically, I put all this data in the sheet. I'm not going to all the details that are mentioned here, but I want to highlight some things. I looked at 8 different implementations. Most have Galera database servers. On the application server, there's not much difference as well. A few use Docker, which was really nice because we wanted to use Docker, and then we saw this presentation from AANet that they successfully used Docker, so that was really valuable for us to see that it would work in production. And also I saw already some scaling problems with the database, on the database side. And I think it's really, this scaling has a correlation with the concurrent number of users. On the storage side, everything looks very different. Everyone seems to do something different. I think most of this has to do with people who already have storage in place, and then they want to reuse it. And people who don't have storage in place use cluster FS. That's what I think. I haven't confirmed this. I haven't asked it or confirmed it, but that's what I think. So we decided to do basically the same, not much difference here, except for perhaps using Docker. We weren't sure on the storage. We're still not sure on the storage, but we looked at Swift or Ceph, and actually we decided to use clusterfs because that was much easier to implement, as we had to do everything from scratch. So there were some highlights. I'm not going into these things. I think most of you will know them. Again, it's for people who just want to do this. They can look at the slides. That maybe helps them. But we got a consultant who worked on the Surf Sara project, the Surf Drive project, Sander Zelstra. Is he here in the room? No, he was here yesterday, yeah. But we started talking, like we wanted to do this implementation, what we've seen with the other customers or the other implementations. And the only thing that might be a little bit different is the Docker side. So we started talking on that, and then he asked us, why don't you put everything in Docker? So yeah, that was a really interesting interesting idea. So we actually designed that. So instead of having a large installation, a large monolithic approach, we decided to use really just a lot of small instances, which are based on Docker containers, and we wanted to use Kubernetes as a container orchestration. We couldn't still not figure out which kind of storage we wanted to use, so we decided to use the storage that was already in place at this customer site. They used Hyper-V and Hyper-V distributed storage of Microsoft distributed storage. So we decided, well, just put VMs on there, put NFS expose NFS storage on that, and then we can continue with the project, and later on we'll do something different. So basically that means that we put everything that's needed for an OwnCloud instance, put it in a pod. So like we have this application server in a container, MariaDB in a container, Redis in a container. We're not sure if we want to include the LDAP slave, and expose it to and put the storage on the NFS. So I think most of you will know Kubernetes, but the difference of comparing it to Docker is that everything lives in a pod in Kubernetes. So these containers can each talk to each other, and only the external internet is exposed, and of course the storage. So that means that everything that doesn't need to communicate within these containers, within this pod, doesn't leave the pod on the host. So that's nice for us, I think. You shouldn't look too much on the left side, because I think we're going to choose something completely different that was already in place. So we decided to reuse it. The interesting stuff is, I think, on the right side. It's the Kubernetes cluster. That's not that different, but on the bottom line, there's got this storage part, and this design leaves room for storage sharding, and there's NFS storage drawn into the box, but I think that could be any kind of storage, which could be quite interesting, because you could choose different kind of storages depending on different needs. So like small storage, or fast storage, or or storage that can replicate to other data centers. It's basically this design gives you the opportunity to shard your storage depending on your needs. So I think it's really, I kind of like this design, which also leaves some possibilities to do this over multiple data centers. Again, NFS is drawn in because we're starting with that, but that could be any kind of storage, I think. So yeah, for us, this gives us quite some advantages. We actually are a Microsoft shop, so we had to learn a lot to just look at to understand all the presentations that go around here. And this gives us a simple approach for a simple setup of Nextcloud. This use case also is very suitable for that, because these pods probably won't have more than 20 users on them, on each instance. And also, OwnCloud has this two-server setup, which just one application server, one database server, and they have thousands of users on it. So I'm curious on how much users we actually can push on those pods. And also the updating should be a lot simpler. We could do it gradually, so one pod at a time or a few pods at a time, and roll back easily instead of an all or nothing approach. And another plus for us actually is not to have these large Galera clusters. We have to learn a lot, so striping off Galera from our list was really nice, because we only have to do these small MariaDB installations. Yeah, again, the storage is, we're not sure for which kind of storage we wanted to use, so we're using this just as an in-between step. And another question, it's not really a disadvantage, but it's more a question, will it scale? So we wanted to do some load testing for 2% here, but when we tried to put our local concept in Google Cloud, things turned out to work a little bit differently in the networking stack in Google Cloud, so we couldn't finish those tests. But I'm really curious, we're planning that for the coming months, and really curious on how much users we can put on one pod, and if it will scale to 10,000s or maybe 100,000s of users. And also I'm very curious on how much it will cost to do a 100,000 user test in Google Cloud. Yeah, other stuff in this concept design, yeah, federation is really interesting. If a customer can't fit in a pod. And as I said, you could, because of the storage sharding, you could use basically any kind of storage depending on your needs. So if you want to have multiple data centers, 3 mirrors distributed storage, or maybe just small cluster FS clusters, or different cluster FS clusters. So that's what I find appealing on this design. Yeah, basically it gives a lot of flexible solutions. I also saw this cluster FS as a container within Kubernetes. That's an interesting design, I think, but I'm not sure we're going for it, but that's an interesting idea, I think. And also the Nextcloud GS, the global scale, is very interesting, of course. But for us, for our deployment, that's a little bit overkill, I think. So I think we can run it on this design. So yeah, no, I've done it really well within the time, I think. I had to practice a little bit on that, but
thank you, Dennis, for this interesting presentation. Are there questions for Dennis?
So do you
Hi.
suppose that possibly one user could occupy more than one instance?
Sorry?
Can a single user use more than just one instance? You have mapping several users, one or more, to a single instance.
Yes.
But can just one user can be mapped to the, say, 2 or more instances in case that the user has many files?
Well, no, but this is, I think, where federation comes in. I think, but if you don't do anything for that in this design, that's not
Okay.
that's not available.
Any other question around? So thanks again, Dennis, for
Okay.
your contribution.